One thing I'd like to point out before we start this video is that it's my second time recording it. I'd previously made this video but something screwed up, so I'm having to remake the entire thing. So some of the features and things that I'm going to talk about have already been installed. So really when it comes down to it, I'll be saving time, but I'll still outline absolutely all the steps that you need to know. On to the video. Today's video is going to be about remote management and different ways to connect to your computer. This will pretty much work with any computer in your LAN as long as you're running the correct version of Windows. So let's start off here on our server manager window. Right here we can see that we have this button to configure remote desktop. By default, you'll have that disabled button applied. So if I'm going to go configure remote desktop, it'll say do not allow connections to this computer. Then we have the options to allow connections from any version of RDP or to allow computers running only RDP with network level authentication, which is the more secure option. So I'm going to choose the second one even though it's not secure, and we get this rule. It says that a firewall exception has been enabled. You can enable RDP connection for all network connections on this computer. To enable it for selected network connections, open Windows Firewall with Advanced Security. So I'm going to say OK. So currently right now, any computer in our LAN can remotely access our server. So I'm going to hit apply and then OK to close that window. And if I come down to my host machine here, I have this RDP window, this remote desktop connection, and to get to that, on most computers you can just type in remote, and then you'll bring up your remote desktop connection. But on some computers that option is hidden, and you can't access it normally, so you have to type in mstsc to open the same window. So either way you do it, that's how you have to get to it. You need this window open, and then we'll type in the IP address of our server. So we type in the IP address, and then it says that we need a domain. And if we were already a computer on the domain, we wouldn't need to enter this, but I'm not on my domain right now because I'm using the local machine, so I say cyber / to specify the domain, then my username, and then the password for that user account. So I'm going to say yes, accept the connection. And here we are. We have our Windows Server 2008 R2 and remotely accessing it right now from our Windows 7 host machine. So as you can see here, I'm on my Windows 7 host machine, and this RDP connection is just a window I have open. So I can minimize it, reopen it, expand it to fit the entire screen, unpin the connection bar up here so this thing's hidden. And then, yeah, I can pretty much do anything from this window that I want to right now. So I pretty much have full access to this computer, and I can access it from any computer in my LAN. One thing that we'll do now is we'll look at the Telnet server option here. So let's go to our features, and we'll scroll down, and you might not have that Telnet server connection right here, but I do. I've already have it installed since, like I said, I already recorded this video previously. So what you want to do is you want to check it, and then you'd hit next, and you'd go through the options to follow the installation. It might point out that you need to restart, but for Telnet server to be installed, you shouldn't have to restart. The next thing we'll do is we'll come down to our services window. And from our services window, we have a new feature. We'll have Telnet. So once again, to get to that, you can just type in services, which is what I find the fastest way to get to it. You scroll down to the T section, and then here you have Telnet. By default, it's usually disabled. So you need to go to this drop-down box, select automatic, and then hit start to begin the service so that computers can start connecting. So we're accessing our server remotely through RDP, but we can also open a command prompt and type in telnet and then the IP address of our server. And then it says, are you sure you want to send your password information to the internet zone? This might not be safe because telnet works in a plain text environment. So I'm going to say yes. And our login will be our username, and our password will be our password as it always is. And don't fear, because oftentimes you won't see your password being typed in, but what it says access is denied because the specified user is not a member of the Telnet's client group. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that that user account that we're using is part of the Telnet clients. So let's go back to our RDP connection, which is on our server. We can go to configuration, or pardon me, we could go to configuration, but we have Active Directory installed. So let's close out of our server manager window there. And we'll come down here to our Active Directory users and computers. Just close out that share and storage management. And we have to go to our users, and under here we also have our groups. So in here we can specify our Telnet clients. And if we look into the members section, currently we have no members. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say the domain admins. I'm going to make sure up here at the object types that groups is selected. So if they weren't, then you could hit check groups. Going to say check names. It finds domain admins. Then I'm going to hit apply. So now all of our domain admins should be Telnet clients. So they should be able to Telnet in. So once again, I'm just going to get rid of that window. And we're going to try this Telnet connection one more time. So yes, login, username, password, and the connection has failed because the specified user is not a member of the Telnet's client group. So let's go back to our machine over here. We'll go to Telnet clients, and we're going to say members, and then we'll add, and we'll add our user. So let's check names, hit apply. Now we'll try this another time. User, password. There we go. So our Telnet clients didn't like the fact that we just said domain admins, so we had to specifically say that we wanted just our user account to access it. So let's use cd to go back, and then we'll say change directory to the desktop. Pardon me. We are going to change directory to our users. So cd with the brought us back a step. So we're in our C drive, and then we have all of our user accounts listed, and then we have our user account. So let's go over here, and let's just sort of see how that would actually look in the file structure. So we have our program files, or pardon me, we're in our C drive, and then we're in our users file, as that's specified right there. And then I tried to change directory to the desktop, but there is no desktop directory in here. So we had to take another step back into our user account, and now we'll change directory to the desktop. And here, as we've changed directory into the desktop, we can say make directory test. And as you can see here, I'm just going to maximize this again. As you can see here, now we have our test directory, which we just made through Telnet. But here's the thing, this entire video we've been using my local machine, just a normal Windows 7 machine, to gain access to the server, which really doesn't make sense. If anything, you'd want it to be the other way around, because we're focusing on security here. What you'd want to do is you'd want to set up this server to be able to access other machines. You wouldn't want just anybody being able to access this server. So you'd be setting up the Telnet client. So if you want to use this machine right here, our local machine, we need to install the Telnet client to be able to access the server. And on the server, we install the Telnet server, but it should maybe be the other way around. So Telnet server on here, Telnet client on the server, which still either way isn't really a good idea because Telnet's not secure. I'm just giving you an example. Or when we were doing our RDP connection, we could select this computer, our host machine, to have Telnet, or pardon me, RDP enabled, and then we could just use the server to go, mstsc, and then from here we, enter the IP address of our actual Windows 7 box. But I'm going to close out of this remote desktop connection, hit Control Delete to log in because that kicked us out when we logged in, and I'm going to log in as our user here, and then I'm going to say Start Task Manager, and the only user we have is currently at our console. So when we were logged in as our user account through remote desktop, we wouldn't have just had one user here. Or pardon me, we would have had one user, but the session would have been different. The client name would have been the name of our Windows 7 computer, and the session would have been RDP TCP 0. So this is how you can tell that someone's accessing your computer through RDP under here, which more than likely they aren't. But just to give you an example. So we'll close out of that, and that'll pretty much be it for this video. So just as a recap, when we wanted to enable, uh, when we wanted to enable our RDP, we went to our server manager window, we turned on RDP, and then we can use on our local machine mstsc to be able to connect to that machine. And then when we wanted to use Telnet, we had to go to our features, turn Windows features on or off, and of course this is going to take a while to load, but on our features window we had to scroll down to Telnet client so that we could use Telnet to access another computer. So once again, that was scroll down here, installed the Telnet client, and on our features on here we had to install the Telnet server, and then we had to go to services and make sure that was started and automatic. And then from there we used our command prompt to telnet into our Windows Server 2008 machine. So that's it for this video, and I'll be back next video with some more tips about cybersecurity.